In this video, I'm going to tell you 6 things that surprised me about Cambodia. Now keep in mind, this is based on my 1-month experience, specifically in the Phnom Penh capital city nearby Riverside. Number 1, the use of the US dollar. I heard about this before coming here, but I was very surprised to see how common and often people interchange between using Cambodian rial and actually US dollars, right? So I was a little bit confusing at first, I have to admit. If you've never been there, it can be a bit challenging, especially because the Cambodian currency itself, the colors actually are very similar. Not only that, it's the denominations are very large. If you're paying for something, you can easily mistake 1,000 for 10,000 and a 10,000 for 100,000, at least from my perspective. Also, I wasn't really sure when to use the US dollar and when to use a Cambodian currency, but the good thing about it is most places have both, especially smaller items. You can pay with local currency, and larger items you can pay with the US dollar, but it's not a big thing. It was definitely surprising for me. I know even after about a month, I still had trouble looking at the currency and trying to figure it out. I'm sure I look silly to some people, or they can easily tell when someone is new to the country. Not a big deal, right? But something to keep in mind if you're coming here. But one good thing I noticed that the exchange rate was pretty much even across the board. There wasn't much fluctuation. Unless you're exchanging large amounts of money, it didn't really make that much of a difference. Most places would be $1 equal to 4,100 Cambodian rial. So keep that in mind as something to be aware of. And you can actually withdraw money from the ATMs with both currencies. You can withdraw US dollars or withdraw actual currency of the local people, which is a Cambodian rial. And one more thing to consider, you can pay with the USD, but they'll give you the change back in the local currency, so you always have a little bit of both in your pocket. The second thing for me that was surprised was the use of bong and on. So what are you talking about, Alex? Bong and on? Yes. So these are terms of endearment used for people you respect, older brothers, sisters, similar to the Philippines when they say po. And you know, it's something common in most Asian countries, or Thailand when they say kap or ka, right? So it's a way of showing respect to someone you don't know who is older, perhaps someone, a person of authority. Even if you're like your server comes and gives you money, they call you bong if you're male, and on if you're female. I know it's not a big deal probably, but I think it gives it this sense of like, not really knowing your place in a situation, but also it's just like knowing that someone respects you. It's a weird feeling to have. It's normal in Asian societies, I'm sure, but coming from Western country, the use of those terms bong and on initially can be a little bit of a surprise, right? So for example, even in relationships, right? If you're with a Cambodian girl, she'll call you bong because she respects you and she sees you as like the leader, perhaps, right? I don't really know how to define this. Maybe someone can help me in the comment section because I'm still fairly new or just spent a month there, but I noticed that a lot. And with on, right? So if someone's at a restaurant and they say on, right, to the woman waiter, for example, waitress, I should say. So it's kind of like a respectable way of addressing someone, right? Think of it as like, I'm trying to think of like sir, perhaps, or ma'am, but like much more sincere and more like a family, or like a bit more, not authoritarian. It's really hard to explain, but it's basically just a respectable thing to say to someone you either don't know, someone that's older than you, maybe someone that's a leader, authority, or someone that is in a different kind of dynamic than you are yourself. A lot of times I call it bong, right? So someone say, hello bong. First one, bong. Anyway, so that's something that surprised me for sure. Number 3 is tuk-tuks. Now, tuk-tuks are all over Southeast Asia, but I've noticed that some countries are slowly starting to fade them away. Some places like Thailand, for example, you only see tuk-tuks in actual major tourist attraction areas, or places like the Philippines, for example, you see much more modern jeepneys nowadays, or tuk-tuks are used in like smaller towns and tricycles. But in Phnom Penh, I noticed tuk-tuks are everywhere. They even have the tuk-tuk on your app. So Grab is like Uber in Asia, right? So if you want to call a taxi, you have options of picking tuk-tuk, which are a bit more, actually about half the price of a taxi, but they're a bit more loud. You do have to wear a mask if you're really sensitive to the respiratory system. There is some pollution there, obviously, but the use of tuk-tuk surprised me on how common they are in Cambodia. But we have to remember that the country is still fairly young. It's developing very fast. And I'm wondering if tuk-tuk can actually keep their place in Cambodian society long term, but that did surprise me for sure. Number 4 is driving on the right side of the road. Yeah, you know, so Southeast Asia, a lot of countries drive on the left side of the road, but in Cambodia, they drive on the right side of the road. If I'm saying, yeah, right side of the road, right? So similar to Canada. So for me, that was exciting to know if I did want to rent a car, I can easily go ahead and do that because they drive on the same side as Canada. But one thing that's kind of confusing, because I've been in Southeast Asia for so long, going back and forth between the switching sides, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, Cambodia, all these things, when you're crossing the road, you have to be very careful. You're looking at the right or the correct side of the road in case somebody comes along. But that was a surprise for me. Not a major surprise, but something I noticed about Cambodia that did surprise me in a positive way. I guess it kind of made me feel like home again and reminded me of which side the steering wheel is. I did kind of miss my car back home. I guess I don't have it anymore. I sold it. But anyway, speaking of cars, let's go on to surprise number 5. The number of luxury cars that I saw in Phnom Penh was overwhelming. And I'm not talking about your typical like Lexus or BMW or Benz or something. I'm talking about Rolls Royces, Phantoms. I'm talking about Maybachs and Bentleys. Some of these cars, I had no idea like which company or which brand. Absolutely gorgeous, brand new, really expensive, $500,000 cars. So you're thinking, what's the big deal, right? You can see these cars anywhere. I'm talking about the sheer volume of these cars. Usually when I travel or even back home, I may see one of these cars once a month somewhere in a luxury hotel outside or outside a casino or something. But surprisingly, in Phnom Penh, I saw them on a daily basis, pretty much regularly and everywhere. Outside cafes, outside restaurants, just driving by. So I wonder where that comes from. So it seems like there's a lot of money with certain people, at least within Cambodia or Phnom Penh. I'm wondering if this has something to do with a couple major casinos I saw there. Regardless, it was a big surprise for me to see some luxury cars, and as often as I saw them. If you've been to Phnom Penh, let me know if you saw these cars too, or was I just in some magical place. And number 6, beer is cheaper than water. Yes, so I found it very surprising that whenever I went to a restaurant, I saw beer for cheaper price than water. You can get a beer in Cambodia and Phnom Penh anywhere from like 65 cents to 75 cents on a restaurant. You sit down, but water from like 80 cents to $1. So that was kind of surprising. If you love drinking beer, if something you can do, which I cannot, I don't drink alcohol. So for me, it was just kind of, I felt a little bit like, not ripped off, but I'm like, oh, I wish I would rather drink a beer than water, right? So that was kind of surprising. Let me know if that's like common in your city. I'd love to know which of these things surprised you the most. If you've been to Cambodia, drop your comments down below. Let me know what surprised you about there. So those were like 6 things that kind of surprised me. Of course, there are so many different things and other things, and first-time visitors to the country may have a complete different experience. But for me, those were the 6 things. Nothing necessarily negative or nothing necessarily positive, but just some things that I observed during my 1-month stay there. If you're living in a different part of Cambodia, if you've been to different places like Siem Reap or other places, I know there's some beaches as well. Let me know if these 6 things actually apply to those locations as well. And if you haven't been there, you don't know anything about Cambodia like me before I went there, let me know which of these 6 surprised you the most. If this video was entertaining, informative, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and yeah, write your comments. I'd love to read them and I'll respond for sure. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.